Hi, this is Pat Morrissey, Chair of the Statewide Elections Accessibility Needs Advisory Committee. We'll start at 1:30.
Hi, Pat. This is Anthony. We can hear you loud and clear. Thanks.
Good. Okay, I think we'll start. This meeting of the Statewide Elections Accessibility Needs Advisory Committee is called to order. It is 1:30 on Tuesday, October 3rd, 2023. The meeting is being conducted by video conference and telephone. Committee members, please keep your cameras on for the duration of the meeting. At this point, I will call the roll of the committee members. Ramota Anand, I believe he is not able to join us today. Katie Kime.
Present. Aloha, Pat.
Hi there, Katie. Cheryl Nelson. James Gashel.
Present.
Fantastic. How you doing, Jim?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Okay.
Good
Okay.
deal.
Pursuant to HRS 92-3.5, members are required to disclose if anyone is present with them for this meeting. Committee members, is anyone present with you for this meeting? I am alone.
James Gashel and I are in the same room, but no one
Okay.
else is present.
Okay. Additionally, pursuant to HRS 92-3.7, we will be meeting remotely using interactive conference technology. As a reminder to the public, your microphone will be muted until you are called upon. Now, with regard to public testimony, it will be taken after each agenda item. If you would like to testify, click raise hand under reactions on Zoom. If you're joining us by phone, press the *9. When recognized, unmute your microphone and for the record, state your name, your first and last name, and the items you will be testifying on. To ensure that we will have sufficient time to hear all testimony, each testifier will have 3 minutes to testify. Once your time has expired, you will be asked to conclude your remarks. As technical issues may arise, we will give each testifier a few moments to try and resolve any connection issues. However, if the issues cannot be resolved, we will have to move on to the next testifier. Okay, now we're going to move to the agenda, and what I would like to do is have a vote on the minutes for September 5th so that they can be made public. Do I have a motion?
Katie Kime moves to approve.
Okay. Second.
Gashel, I'll second.
Okay, thank you. I'm assuming there's no objections among the three of us, so the minutes are approved. All right. Now, because we have a guest speaker today, and I would like to give her the courtesy of speaking next, we have Marlene Sallow, who's the Executive Director of the National Disability Rights Network, and she's going to share some of her observations about accessibility issues connected to elections that she's aware of across the country, as well as her own experience in when she was director of the Disability Rights Center in Massachusetts. So Marlene, you want to go first? I know she's on because I texted her. Are you there, Marlene? Oh God.
Hi, Pat. Sorry, yes, we're trying to unmute her right now. Staff is working on that. Thank you.
Okay. All right. We don't have a picture of you, but
Okay.
there
I
we go.
believe I'm now unmuted. Hello, everybody.
Hi there. Thank you so much for joining us. And I feel very fortunate that I was able to meet you last March at PAC Rim, because you're a really bright spirit, and I think we could benefit from your observations. So go ahead.
Well, thank you very much. And it's a pleasure to be here. As Pat indicated, I'm the executive director of the National Disability Rights Network. I'm a Latina with shoulder length brown hair with gray in it, and I'm wearing glasses, black rimmed glasses. And so the National Disability Rights Network is a network of 57 protection and advocacy agencies, and we have one in all the states and U.S. territories. And I see that Lou is on, and he is the executive director of the Hawaii PNA. And we do work throughout all 57 states and territories on voting rights, right, and protecting the rights of voters And we're gearing up for the 2024 election. And we're looking at different ways that we can work with our community members to ensure an accessible upcoming election, not only this year, but next year for the federal election. And, you know, when we think about challenges, I think we have challenges everywhere, right? So the first thing I would say is, as it applies to COVID, PNAs always go out to polling sites to conduct what we call surveys to make sure that all polling sites are accessible. But as a result of COVID, a lot of those surveys were not conducted. And so all the PNAs now are really concerned about accessibility at polling places. And so they're gearing up to get out there and start surveying as of this year to ensure that we can hit as many or all of the polling places by the time the presidential election arrives. But we're also seeing nationwide access issues with accessible voting machines. And that issue has always existed, but we're really concerned because there are fewer machines at sites now, and the ones that are there have not been maintained. In some cases, they're not set up during the local elections, or we don't have the poll workers that are properly trained to operate them. I mean, I will say that during COVID, while I was in Massachusetts, I visited 30 polling sites. And it was for the primary. And as you know, well, I don't know if it happened in Hawaii, but in Massachusetts, because of COVID, they combined 2 and 3 polling sites into one location. And so when I would go to conduct my survey, they would tell me that the accessible machines were not there because they were at the regular polling site. Or they would tell me, well, we don't think there's anyone in our community that needs them, so we don't set them up. And so we're making sure that that doesn't happen as we go out and visit the sites. What we're also seeing is that some states are expanding and some, however, some are restricting the use of curbside voting. We have curbside voting in Virginia, and it's a vital resource for our voters who struggle to get in and out of their vehicles, who are unable to walk a long length of distance, and who have difficulty standing for any amount of time. There are individuals that do present with social anxiety, or they're at high risk for severe COVID. So we support communities implementing curbside voting. But we are also seeing the ballot drop boxes. We know that they grew exponentially in 2020 because everyone was voting from home. The problem was that many were not placed along accessible paths of travel. And in some states, we see use of drop boxes is also being restricted. So PNAs are doing a lot of advocacy around this issue. We're also extremely concerned about access to the vote in long-term care facilities. So during COVID, once again, right, it's shown a light on how tenuous accessibility can be, especially when you have friends and families that are trying to reach you, but also election personnel couldn't get into facilities to assist voters. So we're really working to ensure that there's better advocacy so everyone's voice can be heard. And as we look across the US, we're seeing that everyone, all of our PNAs are fighting for voters with disabilities to have access to an electronic ballot delivery system. And that delivery system is the one that is used by, sorry, I have a cold, by military and overseas voters. And so in some states, they have been able to use that same system to allow voters with print disabilities to vote an absentee, rather than having to print out a ballot and filling it out and then having to mail it in. In Massachusetts during COVID, we filed a lawsuit against the state to ensure that all voters with disabilities could vote from home. And then we also filed a lawsuit in federal court to ensure that every voter with a disability could use the same electronic system, or the same setup as the electronic system used by the military and overseas voters. And we were successful in getting that implemented for the last presidential election. But since then, Massachusetts has made it part of their statute that you can now vote from home electronically if you're a person with a disability. So we continue across the US to support any changes that will allow voters with disabilities to vote independently and privately from their home. And the one thing that I would like to also shine a light on is when you require like an ID for identification purposes, that remains an issue for electronic and on paper. So electronic verification often relies on forms of ID, like a driver's license, that we can't rely on all voters to have. And so paper ID is most often signature matching, which can also be unreliable, particularly for anyone whose disabilities causes a variation in their signature, or someone who's acquired a disability that changed their signature from the one on file. And so we continue to raise awareness about that if you do require an ID where you're asking to compare signatures, that for some individuals with disabilities, that signature may change. And so therefore, will that ultimately disenfranchise the voter? And so we're working to just raise awareness about this because we strongly believe that through education, everyone can be at the same level of understanding as to what are the needs of people with disabilities throughout our community. So we hope and try to raise awareness so that folks understand that it's very important to have a range of options for voters. And there should be multiple ways of casting a ballot and to verify your identity. And voters should be able to choose what makes voting work best for them, right? It can't just be a one size fits all because we're not monolithic, right? No voter. Every voter is different, but within the disability community, we are not monolithic voters. So if you have a print disability and you are being required to submit, let's say, for instance, they say, okay, you can vote from home. We're going to send you the ballot. You have to bubble, like fill in the bubbles, then take the ballot, put it in an envelope, and then mail it to us. But if you have a print disability, or if you are unable to hold a pen, right, or even to place the document inside the envelope, then you are prohibited from voting independently and privately because now you're going to have to seek assistance from someone. And we should all be treated in an equitable fashion, and every single voter should have the opportunity to vote independently and privately. And so therefore options are necessary in order to accommodate the needs of each individual voter. I don't know if you wanted me to expand on anything or if you had any questions.
I think I'd like everybody to know more about I don't know what the right words are, the way you went about confirming the identification of a voter in Massachusetts electronically.
So in Massachusetts, the beauty of the Massachusetts law was that all voters with disabilities could request to vote by mail prior to COVID. And so there was a discussion about taking a picture or scanning an ID and sending it in, but then we pushed back on the signature piece. And to be honest with you, I don't know where they ultimately landed with the current statute as to what the requirement was. But they were able to, because of the electronic system they were using, they were able to verify the person through an email and a number that they matched them with. So when you called and you said, I'm seeking this, I'm a voter with a disability, here's my residence, they would give you a particular number. And that's the number that you used during the COVID to access your ballot online and then to file it.
Okay,
So at least in that piece, you weren't required to show an ID to anyone before you could submit your ballot or anything like that. But the ultimate statute that just passed last year, I'm no longer in Mass, so I'm not fully up to speed on it.
okay. Do other members of the committee have questions for Marlene?
Yeah, Jim Gashel here.
Hi.
Oh, Katie, I'm getting a echo out of your machine. If you could turn your mic off.
Yep, can do.
Okay, good. So we have a number of features in our law that you mentioned. We should have. So for example, by law, they're not allowed to use a signature requirement, period.
Mhm.
And there must be a means of electronic authentication of the
Mhm.
voter. And that's the standard of the law. So our Office of Elections has created a means which, for lack of describing it more, we refer to it as an authentication website. And you're in the process, you go to this website and enter to register to vote. We don't have any ID requirement either. To register to vote, you need to provide either your state ID number, your birth date, or maybe your SSN or last 4 digits of your SSN. Anyway, if you have two out of the 3 or something like that, it verifies that you're authentic and then authenticates you. We're trying to simplify our process. It certainly complies with what we have as the law, but it's got a lot of steps to it. And we want to get rid of some of those steps. And I'm wondering, in Massachusetts, or maybe you're aware of some other states where they have, I'm talking about electronic return. Once you've actually voted, the electronic return process. Can you describe a few of those models?
Ooh, the one in Mass, there was an authentication online. And then you would have the ballot online and you could fill it out. And then you would also submit it online. And then it was counted. And it was similar to the process that the military and overseas voters used.
Well, no, I don't know how they, yeah. So here, military and overseas had to email back, or I guess they might be able to fax it back to Hawaii, but they also had to sign a waiver of secrecy. So we got rid of that with the no signature requirement. So anyway, the way it works for us is we have to email back. I don't know if you know more about how Massachusetts submits back to their office once you've marked the ballot. Ideally you could hit one button and it would go.
So during COVID, it was an email back. I'm not up to speed as to what ultimately made it into the statute and the law, but I could definitely send you that information by email.
That would be wonderful if you could do
Yes.
that. This is a current concern that we're working through. And do you happen to know what third-party vendor they use to provide this service?
The name is escaping me right now, but I can definitely send that to you because
Yeah.
I do know that they spoke to 4 different vendors.
Okay.
Trying to find the one that best fit the quick turnaround that they needed at the time. But I don't know if they ultimately stayed with that vendor for the law that went into effect. So I can definitely ask that as well.
Yeah, if you could find out, that'd be perfect. I think that's all I've got for right now.
And I can
Okay.
also send you the lawsuit, like the court order, because it was really a mediated agreement in federal court.
Oh,
And
that'd
that
be
pretty
good.
much
That's-
laid out the process of what they were supposed to establish.
Sure, that'd be good to have.
Thank you,
Mhm.
Marlene. You can just, since you have my email, you can send it to
Yes.
me. Still have Anthony's, you can send it to him, and then we'll have it in 2 places, and that'll be good. Okay?
Excellent.
By the
Yes.
way, I probably should mention, we're an all vote by mail state. So,
Oh.
yeah, so we actually have very few polling sites.
Mhm.
We don't really call it a polling site anymore. They call it voter service centers. And on each
Oh,
of our,
wow.
on each of our islands, we really only have 2 or 3. That's somewhat of an issue in the general population, and maybe also for disability, because there's, on the Big Island, there's a long distance between polling places now, or voter service centers, excuse me, but the trade-off is everybody gets a mail ballot, and if you register for it, you can get that ballot electronically by email.
Mm-hmm. Yes, as well as in Massachusetts, if you registered as a disabled voter, you would get the ballot by email with your identifier number. So that's how they verified you.
Yeah.
Because originally they were asking for a wet signature, and we pushed back on that with our lawsuit, saying that some people can't provide a wet signature. So you're going to have to accept a typewritten signature.
Yeah, I guess for us, I think the state ID is number is the substitute for that, because we don't get issued a separate number.
Right.
Okay.
Well, that was during COVID. So, but I'll
Yeah.
definitely find out what the
Sure. Okay,
final law says.
perfect.
Thank you so much. Katie, do you have any questions?
I do not, Pat. Thank you.
Okay, I think we have about a whole group of 17 of us today, which is amazing. Our numbers are dramatically increasing. So as Anthony or Natalie, does anybody have their hand raised to ask Marlene a question?
Hi, Pat. Yes, we have Donald Sakamoto.
Okay, Donald, go ahead. Donald is head of the Oahu Accessibility Committee.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Don Sakamoto, I'm the chair for the Special Needs Advisory Committee for Honolulu. And
Yeah.
Pat or Jim, could I get a copy of what you're going to be receiving from the speaker so I can be aware of what's going on that part?
Absolutely. I'll make sure you get it.
Wonderful. I like the presentation so far, so I'll be listening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else, Natalie?
No other hands raised here.
Okay, Marlene, I have one final question for you. I'm interested in us being involved in helping people learn more about candidates in the next election, both state and federal. And I was wondering if NDRN any NDRN members do those kinds of things, create candidate forums and that sort of thing.
So we're currently in conversation with a couple of other disability rights organizations to see if we can join forces and have a candidate forum. But in addition, NDRN staff will be traveling to the primaries in both South Carolina and New Hampshire. And we will be trying to interview candidates in both states, as well as trying to speak to whomever they've designated within their campaign as being the disability point person. So we know in the last presidential election, some of the candidates did have someone on staff that worked specifically on disability issues. So we're also going to be trying to speak. Also going to try to speak to anyone who may have a disability rights advocate as part of their campaign staff. And then we will be making those videos and then posting them on our website.
Oh, that's great. That's great. But you don't.
So at least from the national perspective, we'll
Right.
have something to offer. Now, statewide, it's up to each individual state P&A.
Right.
to do that work.
So will you be sharing on your website examples of things states will be doing to arrange for candidate forums?
Yes, we will be. As a matter of fact, during the last presidential election, New Hampshire did a lot of work with presidential candidates, and we featured their videos on our website. So most definitely, as we find out who's doing what, if there are any videos to feature or any information, it'll be on our website under the news section.
Great, great. And if you eventually get an arrangement with other disability organizations to do candidate forums from your office, I'd certainly like to know about it.
Most definitely, I'll let you know.
Well, we really appreciate your time this evening, and I hope you can now go back and have some dessert and a good night.
I think someone else had their hand up.
Oh, okay, okay.
Hi, Chair. We have Lou from the Hawaii Disability Rights.
Okay, Lou, go ahead.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, you have everybody on mute, so it's really hard to talk. But thanks. I wanted to thank Marlena, our national director, for being here. She's done a great job, and I know, Pat, that we did get a chance to talk with you last year at the PACRIM. A couple of things. I know Jim was talking about possible legislation that you might need for next year. So if you do come up with something, I mean, we do a lot of legislative testifying. And I've been doing that for a long, long time. So if there's anything that you think you want to try to advocate for next session, and you think that we could be of some help, then definitely feel free to let me know. The other is that yes, because we are an all mail-in state, we get a lot of money from the federal government under our, under the Help America Vote Act, and so we used to do a lot of monitoring of the polling sites, but we just can't do that anymore because there aren't that many polling sites. But what we have done a lot of is voter registration drives, and so I mean one of my theories for a long time has been that if more people with disabilities organized as a voting bloc, that they would have a larger impact, especially at the state legislative level, that politicians tend to respond to think pressure and things like that. So I think that if more and more people with disabilities actually registered, because they are a large percentage of the population, they could have more of an impact. So we do a lot of that. And finally, yeah, I mean, Pat, I've known you for a long time, and same with Katie and Jim and some of the others. So if there's any ways that you think going forward, Donald and I work on a lot of issues. If you think that we can be of any help, think of ways that we can work together. And I'm certainly open.
The lady that handles HAVA for you, Lou, I told her that I have an interest in doing candidate forums, but that we need to do it together. And in addition to, obviously partnering with you, I thought it makes sense to bring in the League of, whatever the local chapter is for the League of Women Voters, and try to do some candidate forums beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
Great.
Because I agree with you. The people with disabilities are out there in Hawaii, but they're not politically organized with a small p, to impact the legislature. So we need, I think by being more visible and doing things that they value, like candidate forums, might help us bring groups together that can then educate the legislature.
Yeah, you mean you're thinking like a candidate forum focusing on disability issues?
Absolutely, that would be the focus.
Yes, and that would be a good use of some of that funding from PAVA that we have.
I thought perhaps I'd reach out to Senator Rhodes too, who's the only person I know that would help us promote this concept in the community once we got organized.
Oh, I think he probably would. And I know a lot of the legislators and there's the Kapuna caucus and things and people like that. So I think that we probably could put something like that together. Marlena, Hawaii doesn't have off-year elections like they do on the mainland. Like, in a lot of places, like you have municipal elections sometimes in the off years and things like that. So we only actually have election day every 2 years. So there's nothing going on that way, so to speak, in 2023. But yeah, next year is going to be a big year, obviously. So the entire
So when do candidates have to file? By January for Hawaii, you know?
Oh gosh, I'm not sure. You mean for the state, like for state legislators?
Or, well, no, if they intend to run for the Senate or the House or, again, I mean, I know we have, Casey and Cox, but I don't know about the,
I'm not sure of the actual deadline offhand, but
but I think that, local politicians affect a lot of things too. So we need to make sure that, when we do have candidate forums, we do it not only for federal elections, but also for state offices or local offices for that.
I mean, there's probably a mayor's election next year too, here on.
Right.
And so, and of course, turnout is typically higher in a presidential year to begin with compared to a non-presidential year. So, there's a fair likelihood that there will be a higher participation. I mean, I think the other interesting item, I guess, Marlena, would be that part of why I think they implemented the mail-in voting was that Hawaii traditionally had a pretty low turnout rate, and the thought was that maybe this would be a way to make it easier for people to vote and so forth. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well,
It
thank
looks
you.
looks like Marlena's got her hand raised.
Oh, so I was just, as you're speaking, all I can think about is the fire in Maui and all of the displaced residents there. And so just making sure that they have access to mail-in vote when the time comes would be so very important.
Well, that's a good point, because the other thing that I've been reading is that some of those folks who've been displaced may be relocating, right?
Right.
I mean, they may be moving to a different island or,
Unfortunately, we don't have, I was talking to Donald yesterday, and we don't have a parallel local committee on Maui. We have one, or on the Big Island, we have one on Kauai and one on Oahu. And, clearly having local committees is really important. So
Right.
I think we have to reach out, and this committee has to reach out to the mayors and see if they can, inspire them to get with it, because
Sure.
clearly voting in the election in the Lahaina area is going to be an issue if things are still
you
disrupted.
don't have anybody from Maui on your committee.
No, I don't think so. Everybody is on our committee is on Oahu.
Mhm. Mhm.
So the only thing I would suggest is I do know that there's I think a monthly or maybe even weekly meeting between members of federal government and local government in Maui, where they're just making sure that folks are being connected to resources. Perhaps they are also able to provide you with information as to individuals with disabilities that were in Maui that may now be displaced, as to where they may be,
Yeah,
to keep an open line of communication with them to ensure that they remain registered to vote, whether they're in Maui or another island. So that just to provide them with the info.
That's a great point. I mean, because I was on a call. I mean, we do a call once a week, every Tuesday, like at 8:30. There's this disability hui that the DD Council has organized, and it started out dealing with emergency issues, but now we're trying to just make sure that we keep in touch on all these other things. So I can mention that to them so that
Mhm.
as an issue to, you know, keep on top of. That's an excellent.
Well, clearly 9,000 people have had their address changed, if nothing
Right.
else.
And
So-
this isn't front and center for them, right? It's about having shelter. It's about having a job.
Right.
But before we know it, the next election comes. And so just trying to remain alert and aware of the needs is so very important for us. So
No, that's an excellent.
That's very important. I'm glad you brought it up, really.
I think Donald has his hand up.
Okay,
Excuse me, Pat, this is Katie. Whenever I'm in line, I didn't put my hand up.
okay. My screen doesn't show whose hands up, so I'm at a disadvantage. So Katie, why don't you go ahead, and then Donald, you can come after Katie, okay?
I
Okay.
believe there's one or two participants representing themselves from the county of Maui I see on the list. And I don't know if they wanted to speak possibly since we
Oh.
addressed that, but I saw their names or office county of Maui. So anyway, just.
Okay. Oh, great,
Yep.
great. Okay, well, Donald,
Mhm.
you go next, and then we'll open up to people from Maui. Donald? You're muted. Yeah.
probably have to unmute him.
Yeah,
Don?
he's still on mute.
Donald, you're still on mute.
Well, maybe if you
Oh,
didn't.
hi, Chair. Sorry, we're trying to get him to be unmuted.
Maybe
Can you hear me now?
everybody, it would be easier.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, Don Sakuma from the Honolulu Special Needs Elections Advisory Committee. Pat, thank you for having this meeting and wonderful dialogue. I tried to get the word out to everybody on the different counties through Glenn Takahashi from the Honolulu Kirk to other islands. Glenn Maui's here. But my concern was the voter centers on Maui. There was, I believe, the last election, they only had one. Actually, they're supposed to have like 2 or 3, but we need to have those who cannot access the mail-in ballot and want to go in person with a disability to use a machine is very important. So we need to have voter centers accessible in different areas of the outer islands. We're fortunate we have a good one here in Oahu. And we do have a deafblind task force with the state legislature, and Jim's on that committee, and we can get the word out for those people with disabilities too. So, but kudos for this wonderful meeting. Very informative. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I can't see who has their hand up, but is somebody from Maui like to share anything with us?
No further hands up, Chair.
Okay. Well, Marlene, I'll thank you again for joining us. And now you can try and go and have your dessert.
No worries. Thank you
Okay.
very much for the invitation. And Lou and I are always here to assist in any way we can.
Well, that's great. And you both will hear you. Okay.
All right. Thank you very
All right.
much, everyone. Have a good rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the report on the status of recommendations made to the Office of Elections by the committee.
Hi, Chair. This is Madeline. Before we move on to that, I do want to acknowledge that there was one individual who had submitted a written testimony. It was included in the meeting packet for today. But I believe, also, I'll just go ahead and if we could call out this individual's name, and if they're here and if they would also like to provide oral testimony. Her name is Kathy Gumpel. Okay, I don't think she's here, Chair, so we could move on to the next agenda item.
Okay, that's a report on the status of recommendations made to the Office of Elections by this committee.
So we have received a recommendation from the committee to look at ways to streamline the ballot return process. So the Office of Elections has been working with the vendor Enhanced Voting to look at ways how we could simplify the electronic ballot delivery and return processes. we met with the vendor, and there are a few items that we were able to work with the vendor, and they're working on exploring on how we could implement it for the system. So I'm going to start off with receiving the electronic ballot. The voter will receive an email from the elections division with instructions on how to access their electronic ballot. They'll be provided a link to a portal. And from the portal, they'll be able to access their ballot. When they get onto the portal, they will need to enter credentials, and those credentials will be associated with their voter registration so that they'll be obtaining the correct ballot type. So moving on, when marking the electronic ballot, the voter will be able to log on to the portal, and the voter may choose to mark their ballot within the portal or mark offline using their own compatible device. So they can either go through the portal, mark the ballot using their compatible device, or take that ballot and mark it offline.
Okay, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Somebody sends in or indicates their name and address, that's the way of verifying who they are. So that's all part of the electronic voting process if they choose to do it online.
Yes. So we heard the concerns and the comments regarding the last election on how we had the multiple sign-in for the voter. So we're looking at a single sign-on for the voter. So when they access the portal, they will provide the credentials given to them to access the portal, and that would serve, we're looking at that as to serve as a way to authenticate themselves.
Oh, so like a number, for example, or a code of some kind.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, we're still working out the details for that, but it's but that is the process in which we are working with the vendor to do, so that we avoid having the voters log on to multiple sites.
Okay, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but thank you.
No problem. Okay, so the next step would be returning the electronic ballot. After the voter votes the ballot, they'll have the option to return their voted ballot through that portal, or the voter still does have the option to return their voted ballot via email, mail, or fax. So there are options for the voter to return their electronic ballot. Lastly, we have been working with the vendor to develop a demonstration HTML ballot. We're hoping to get that in the coming weeks so that we can start incorporating it into our voter education efforts. And we'll definitely share that ballot with the committee when made available.
Would it be possible to have when everything is ready for, beta testing, for example, we could have the vendor do a demonstration for this committee via Zoom?
Yes, so we have reached out to Enhanced Voting to let them know that the committee would like them to attend one of the meetings. So currently they're working, they've been busy implementing elections with other states. And so I know after September, I think we'll have a better idea of the schedule. After October, we'll have a better idea of the scheduling to get them attend one of the meetings so that they could provide a demonstration regarding the system.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Gashel.
Yes.
Go ahead, James.
Okay. Yeah, well, just to make the point that, all right, we're not going to find out about when they could make us a presentation until sometime after October. That means November, but we may not know until December. Nettlin, I'm kind of seeing months sliding by.
No, I'm sorry. No, we're hoping to hear from them in October.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did share with them that the committee would like for them to provide a demonstration. I believe it was after the last meeting, and because they've been conducting elections for other jurisdictions, I think that they haven't had a chance to schedule anything with us.
Right, understood. But please convey to them that we have a sense of urgency. That we don't want this to slide so that we're not looking at something until next June or July, because we have a primary coming up in August next year. So it really, when you think about it, it's not that long, especially once we look at something and then there would be inevitable suggestions for change and so forth. I just want to say, I like the outline so far, and it looks like a good concept. So there are probably a variety of ways of ballot return, some of which would be very simple. I don't know if you know, but they're suggesting one option would be to return the ballot through the portal. So I'm seeing that you've marked your ballot, and could, at this point, we go through the authentication website. I guess we would be eliminating that because you've authenticated yourself at the beginning by getting to the portal. Would that be correct?
That is the goal that we're working with the vendor to do a single, we call it a single sign-on.
Right. Okay, that's great. And then the other thing is, if you opt to return the ballot through the portal, then that would eliminate the need to, download and send a separate email. Is that correct?
Correct. However, the voter does still have the option, if they want to email it on their own, they can still attach the voted ballot to their personal email.
Correct.
And then email it to the county. So
Correct.
we want to be sure that the voter does have options.
Correct. But I take it that the portal would be configured to send the ballot to my appropriate local office of elections. So I wouldn't have to know what that is. It would just go from the portal once I hit a button. Is that the idea?
That's the idea, yes.
Okay, well, I just want to say hats off to you or the vendor or whoever's figuring this out, because it looks like it would work. Now let's cross our fingers. We need to see it in enough time, and this would be good. It would be something that I think a lot of people could be very enthused about.
Yes, and we will definitely keep the committee apprised with the workflow progress. So we'll be sure to convey that to the committee.
Now, I read this report, and thank you for the summary. There are other recommendations that the committee has put before OE staff in past meetings, and this is the one on the streamlining. But could we? I don't know if you can do it at this meeting, but future reports, could we still be reminded of our previous recommendations and the status of the resolution on them? Even the ones that have been completed, putting the word completed would be enough. But,
absolutely.
But I know some are still in process.
Yes, we will. We'll go ahead. We'll go ahead and do that.
Yeah, we have shorter memories, and we need to be reminded of what we recommended in the past, and especially we do need to know the status of it. Thanks.
Thank you. That concludes the report. Is there any other questions? Oh, Chair, Donald Sakamoto has hand raised.
Okay, Donald.
Now,
Go ahead, Donald.
okay, can you hear me now? All right. Yeah, Donald Sakamoto. I just got a question on Netherlands. If you do the portal and you do the ballot, everything comes out okay, but they still have hard time individuals sending it through email. You said you can put it in the envelope and sign it and mail it. So are you folks updating the signatures again, just in case the signature of the person on the envelope does not match the data? Or should we just call and verify you got our envelope? with the signature is not that great anymore.
So yes, you're correct. Every registered voter will still receive a mail ballot packet. So even if you have signed up to receive an electronic ballot, you will still receive the ballot packet in the mail. And if the voter does choose to return their electronic ballot via mail, they can use the envelope that's provided in the packet. Now, if you do have any concerns about your signature, I would recommend that the voter contact their county elections division. They're the ones that maintain the voter registration, and you need to inquire as to if you need to update it. Sometimes voters will complete a voter registration application and submit that, and then the county would go ahead and use that to update any information to their record. But I would recommend you reaching out to your county to inquire.
Okay, that will be my county clerk will be Takahashi, so
Yeah.
I work closely with him, and with people with different signatures or Parkinson's disease, it's very difficult to get it correct.
So usually when we do our community outreach and voters do have that question, we recommend that they can complete the voter registration application, sign, and then that would be submitted to the county clerks, and that would be used to update the record.
And we still do have the tracking for your electronic ballot, so you can know when it got to you
Yes.
folks.
Yes, that service will still be available. Ballot tracks will be available for voters, so they can sign up to receive notifications when their ballot sent out, when their ballot has been received, and also if there are any issues with the return ballot, such as signature, you'll receive a notification to contact the county clerk.
Okay, and then when we set up a ballot to the portal, we immediately get a confirmation on it, like an email saying it went through, or so.
I would have to double check the return process. We haven't quite gotten to that, the details as to iron that out yet. But I'll put that on my list to follow up.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, the next thing on our agenda is presentation from the Office of Election on voter outreach efforts.
Hi, Chair. So that would be me again. I'm actually part of the voter services here at the Office of Elections, and our section handles the voter education and outreach for the community. So what I'll do is I'll just share a brief overview of what we have in regards to our program. Our voter education focuses on the method of voting and providing information how to improve a voter's experience. What we do, the components of the voter education, does include a media campaign and outreach to the public. With the media campaign, we promote elections elections with important dates and deadlines, and we do convey to the voter the responsibility of ensuring the integrity of elections. The media campaign consists of television, radio, digital ads, and we do work with a team to post on digital, such as websites and social media websites. The campaign is supplemented with press releases and news interviews. So looking into 2024, we will continue to include messaging regarding accessibility voter services in our advertising as well as our news interviews. And we are also looking into working with media to do like another story like we did similar to in 2022 covering voters voting at the Voter Service Center. I believe that was KITV we had worked with. So we will pursue similar stories so that we can help promote the services for disability community.
Do you keep either a calendar or a sample of your voter outreach efforts on your website?
We don't have a calendar, an external calendar. Right now we're building out our calendar for 2024. So, but if there are any events or tabling events, we are open to looking into that. but it's not posted on our website.
Okay, but if there's no one place on your website where say all your videos are that are
Oh.
used for.
Oh yeah, no, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. We do have a page on our website where we do post our videos, any type of printed collateral that we develop, so that anyone, any groups who might be interested in conducting their own type of voter registration drive or outreach, feel free to go ahead and use our material.
Okay, how do you do voter registration outreach? I mean,
So
do
what-
you set up like in the mall somewhere or?
We've done various ways for voter registration. Right now, what we're doing is we've built a kind of like a database with partners in the community, whether it's county, state agencies, community groups. So what we do is we get their calendars and see how we can fit it into our calendars that we can attend and do tabling events. Most recently, we did the Young at Heart event at the Blaisdell. And so it's either sometimes we hear it from the community, we'll hear it from our partners, and we'll go out, staff will go out and conduct these voter registration drives.
Have you done any voter registration outreach to disability organizations in the state?
Yes, they're definitely part of our list of partners. I think most recently in the past couple months we did United Self-Help, and we do have others that are kind of chewed up down the road. It's just a matter of confirming details such as date and time and location, but we do have them on our list to check in with them to make sure that we don't miss any of those type of outreach events.
Okay.
Gashel,
Go ahead, Jim.
Nedelin, you can put down Honolulu chapter, National Federation of the Blind of Hawaii meets second Tuesday every month, 5 p.m. Cathedral of St. Andrew, 229 Queen Emma Square. And we could work in office of elections, any meeting time given notice. And it would be a good opportunity. We meet both in person and on Zoom. So attendance is good. And you could get some registrants and information out that way. And this just put us on the list.
Oh, perfect. Yes, I believe in 2022 we attended a virtual, and if there's an in-person opportunity, that would be wonderful too.
Well, the one you're referring to was state. I'm telling you local.
Okay.
But we have similar opportunities. We have 6 chapters in the state, and we have similar opportunities. Now, our next state meeting will be a lot closer to the election.
Okay.
So it would be a good idea to deploy your troops at some of our local meetings, and they meet monthly. You can learn this by checking the hawaii.nfb.org, hawaii.nfb.org. And I think it gives the schedule for each of our local chapters. I'm only telling you about the Honolulu one.
Okay.
Thank you,
perfect.
Jim. This is Anthony. I just wanted to say, we actually, in the past, have actually reached out to many of the different chapters of the NFB, including Hawaii, including West Hawaii, Hilo, Kauai, where we've even provided a virtual presentation for the NFB of Kauai and the Department of Vocational Rehab Services. So we provide partnerships between consumer organization groups. For example, we're also in November providing a statewide presentation for the long-term care ombudsman's program, which is another area that touches different segments of the population. In addition, we provide to different groups, including those with mental health challenges and as well as developmental disabilities. In the past, we've provided and reached out in areas including the disability forum statewide. So we partner with a lot of different community groups, as well as we utilize the Special Parent Information Network, which also provides statewide reach to students in transition. So just some thoughts.
Those are excellent. And, you know, I think if we could get this is going to be a recommendation that we kind of cover this outreach list every meeting. We have upcoming monthly meetings now. So it would be good to know about what's happened and what looks like it's coming up in terms of outreach. If we could include that on our list of reports that we get each month.
Great idea. And I also, I have some contacts with the deaf community that I don't know what the name of it is, so I have to go check with people at the Center on Disability Studies. But this is a community center group where a lot of people with hearing loss and deafness are involved in a lot of different things. Also, I want to ask a question about how do you reach high school kids that are, you know, 18 or approaching 18? Do you do any outreach there?
Oh, perfect timing, Chair. That was my next point in my my presentation. But we are currently doing our youth voter registration program. It's called the Future High Voter. So for this one, this program encourages high school students who are at least 16 years of age to pre-register. Hawaii is one of the states that allow pre-registration at the age of 16, and when they turn 18, they automatically are registered to vote. So we do work with the Department of Education in the high schools across the state to coordinate the dissemination and collection of voter registration forms.
Okay.
So
Do you include, I mean, I'm assuming you do, but I think it's worth mentioning. Do you include kids with disabilities in this process? Because some of them, you know, handled primarily by resource teachers and special ed teachers. So if you don't go to those classrooms, you don't get them.
Yes, we do reach out to that to them as well. In addition to that, I know we do participate or we do attend tabling events that I think it's forgive me, I can only remember the acronym, but SPIN, which targets kids transitioning into adulthood. We do attend that and provide resources, voter registration resources to that.
We also provide, utilize the Footsteps to Transition resource fairs, which is a partnership of the DOE, various state organizations and nonprofits. And their mission and aim is to assist individuals with disabilities through the transition from high school to the community. And as one of those things is civic engagement and, you know, registering to vote, showing individuals with disabilities that they are able to vote. In addition, we are reaching out to the transition coordinators. So we are definitely continuing to reach out, and if you have any leads or contacts, we appreciate you letting us know.
Katie
Okay.
Kime, I think that Jim's idea of having a list, because a lot of the resources that we might be thinking of that we have contacts with, you may already be doing, or there may be a facet of that entity that you're not aware of that we might have that could add to the robustness of your outreach. But I think that's a great idea to have the list as part of the monthly report instead of repeating multitudes of resources that you might
Yeah.
already be doing. So thank you.
I'd love to have a hard copy of that.
Right. And then just in those terms, Anthony, you had said if we have any, send them. Would that be direct to you, Natalie, or any particular? Okay,
You
great.
can send it to both of us.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Chair, I do want to acknowledge that committee board member Cheryl Nelson is on.
Okay,
I think she's just having issues with her audio, so.
okay. Well, I'm glad you joined us, Cheryl. And would you like to share anything or ask a question at this point? If you can.
I can see that she's her audio is not connecting. We'll work with her offline to see how we can assist with that.
Okay, okay. The next item on the agenda we've kind of talked about, I think, is discussion on relating to mobile voting, electronic ballot delivery and return process. I think we pretty much covered that in our discussion already. And so is there anybody in the audience, so to speak, that has anything they'd like to bring up under the last item before the adjournment? Is general discussion on issues?
Chair, Donald Sakamoto has his hand raised.
Okay, Donald?
Can you hear me now?
Yes?
Okay, Chair and everybody, Donald Sakamoto again. You know, I usually listen to PBS Hawaii on Thursdays. I don't know if they come at 8. And one time I seen our state elections officer, Scott Nagel, on there talking about the elections. Could we have a segment where we have the disabled statewide person from your group go with the elections officer, Scott, and talk about what you folks are doing in the elections for the needs of the advisory committee? That would be a good
Sure.
idea.
And I'll volunteer Jim and Katie, because you know they're really well connected to what's happened in the past, and they provide the details of what happens in the future.
Is that the famous voluntold? Thank you, Pat.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I'm a process technician, and you guys are the substantive experts. You know,
Thank you.
well, it's true. But no. So why don't you, Donald? Do you have Katie and Jim's email, or do you? I'll send it to you so you get it. And
Either way, I know them. They know me. So either way.
okay, good. Yeah. That would be wonderful. Now, the item I want to talk about now is I really am serious about candidate forums. So what I would like to suggest is that I volunteer to reach out to the League of Women Voters and some of the other organizations that may be connected to voting, and see if we at least have a conversation with them about a partnership, and maybe invite some of them to our next meeting, and then we can decide, you know, what and how we want to do things, and start working on that so that we be able to start in, you know, like late winter, to start holding some Zoom forums so that people with disabilities will get exposed. And I also will volunteer to write something for our page on the website about what we have done in the last 14 or so months in very general terms, and urge people to register to vote and to keep an eye out for things we have planned in early 2024. Because I think that I would like to see us start working on I hate to say it, an email list of voters with disabilities, so we can start increasing their interest in
Yes.
process of voting, and to also
Can you guys hear me? See me?
help us on things we pursue in the future.
Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, Gashel here. So about the email list, I think this is a wonderful idea. I don't believe our webpage has a place for anyone to sign up for an email list. But if it doesn't, which I assume it doesn't, I'd like to suggest that an email sign up option be added to the webpage.
Right, right. I love that idea. I hope we don't have to vote on that, do we, Anthony? Just do it. Okay? That'd be wonderful.
We can operate by consensus, I think.
Okay, good on that one. And then the other item I wanted to bring in, again, I am very interested in increasing our visibility and our relevance to the human beings in Hawaii, of all stripes. And I'm willing to do once a month, if we meet once a month, or once a quarter, if we go back to once a quarter after the election, a one-page newsletter kind of thing, where we kind of just let people know what we're up to, what's important, and again, just to increase our visibility. And the third thing is, thanks to Anthony, he sent me the names of all the groups that are responsible for those Greek amendments to the ballot. And I'll draft a letter to them between now and our next meeting and send it to you all. And about how we want to help them. And then once you all have a chance to comment on it, I'll send them out, and hopefully we'll get some conversations going on the plain English that we need in future amendments to the Constitution in Hawaii, all right? Or whatever they are called.
Oh, I'm all for it. All for it.
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good to me. This is Cheryl.
Good.
Pat, this is Katie. I have a question for Anthony and Adeline. And it has to do with the database of emails for individuals with disabilities. And since you're a state department, in the property tax department, individuals have the choice of identifying themselves as an individual with a disability based on a couple of factors, disability for their property taxes, and if they're a business owner with a disability, the GE tax percentage rates. Do you have, and those are confidential within the state systems, but as a state department, I'm wondering if you have ever reached out to them or have a relationship with them so that you can have access to outreach to those individuals.
This is Madeline. No, we have not heard about that. That's the first time I've heard about it.
Okay.
I would have to, what I'll do is I'll try to reach out to those departments. I would assume that the information might be confidential in the sense that it has to be related to that type of work that they do, whether it's a taxation or property. So I don't know if we'd be privy to that, but again,
Right.
I can reach out to see, to just learn more about it.
Right. I'm familiar with it for a variety of reasons, but also, and I don't know about through vocational rehabilitation if other disabilities, but there is a statute in Hawaii that requires a registration of all people who are blind in Hawaii. And so that's a specific category of disabilities, but maybe through vocational rehabilitation, there's something you could partner with also to outreach to individuals with disabilities through the different state entities as different from private or nonprofit organizations of disabilities. Just thinking out loud.
Oh, thank you for the recommendation. We'll add
Sure.
that to our list to research.
Okay, thank you.
This is Cheryl. Can you guys hear me?
Yes?
Oh,
Uh-huh.
boy. Another way that I've thought of is to get just agencies that service people with disabilities, or even like I'm just thinking out loud, the Chamber of Commerce and other business organizations, to let them know about accessible voting and whatever we're doing, because it can also serve as an education point for businesses and other agencies that take voting, they take it for granted. So, there's all kinds of, I've sent some stuff. I was on the Help America Vote Act training, and did the Help America Vote Act training here in Hawaii. So I'm making a list of agencies and things to send to, if that's helpful.
No, that'd be
I-
good. That'd be good. Again, I think visibility for us is really key here. And creating a whole community of people with disabilities that are civic minded to help us, reach other people that we haven't gotten to yet. And, and so I think all this is excellent, excellent.
I think,
Now,
oh, sorry.
go ahead, Cheryl.
I was also gonna say, even agencies with people like that are gonna be voting soon, not voting now. For example, I just thought of like the Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts, and agencies where you're talking to the older scouts about, voting, and, have you ever thought that, some people can't vote because the voting's not really accessible? Because I worked through Parks and Rec and talked to a lot of groups of older kids just about accessibility, including voting. So that's another avenue too.
No, I think that's excellent. In fact, any organization connected to human beings, since disability is cross-sectional and can be anywhere, I think that'd be a good idea. Good idea.
Thank you.
Now, I only have one more item, and Jim, this is related to you. You had mentioned to me in an email that you had some state people in mind that have tackled voting processing issues successfully, that you'd like to invite to speak to us?
Yeah, I do. And I could make a list available to somebody, you or Anthony and Netherland, however you want to do it.
Okay, why don't you, send it to all three of us, and then,
Yeah.
but why don't you prioritize them? Who would be your first choice, second choice, third choice? Because I think it was helpful to have Marlene talk to us today, and I think the idea of having somebody from the outside world come in and talk about their experience is a good thing for us, because it verifies the good stuff we're doing, and it also highlights things we may not have yet considered and move them up the priority list for us.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. We have a lot of good stuff going on. Our law is good, and it's just our implementation. We got a ways to go. But getting the perspective from the states on the mainland, I think, is really good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I will do that. I will get a list together. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Are there anybody else want to say anything before we
Sakamoto.
Pardon me?
Sakamoto would like to talk if can. Donald.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, Chair. Again, I'm with the Honolulu Elections Committee for Honolulu, but we have Kauai. It would be great to have either the chair of that committee come to our meetings, outreach to give their concerns, or the clerks of the different islands, if they don't have a committee, to attend these meetings and to give their perspective of what they can do to give input to you folks, as well as work together on how you folks can help them get members in their committees. But
But doesn't Anthony reach out to Kauai every month? Don't you do that, Anthony?
Hi, Chair. Sorry, Anthony's having issues unmuting. But yes, we do send the agenda to the committee. So they are
Okay.
aware of the meeting.
Okay, so maybe Donald, I have to send a personal email to whoever's head of the Kauai group to inspire them to join us.
And question, do they respond with any response to your email, Netherlands, or?
No, I did, well, I don't know. I don't think anybody from Kauai has been on before, but I can't remember.
Yeah. Well, Chair, I can help you with that if you want.
Okay, yeah, if you could send me the email for the chair of the Kauai committee, and I'll send them a personal email and copy all you guys. And then maybe that will inspire them to attend the next meeting.
Wonderful.
Okay, and
Well, also the county clerks.
County- okay,
You know,
well,
even though, so like here it would be Glenn, but the other county clerks should be invited just to sit in
okay.
too.
Now, just from a management perspective, you know, we take a little over an hour to do these meetings now. If we have somebody from your list, Jim, and somebody from a county clerk's office, that's two people. That won't leave us a lot of time for, you know, kind of open-ended conversation, but I'm open to that. Do we want to
Well,
do? two
my
hours?
thought on the clerks, my thought on the county clerks was, sorry, I think I interrupted you. It's hard to know on Zoom. My thought on the county clerks was at least to know to sit in, and it might stimulate getting these other committees going too.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, so
Sure.
we'll make sure what I'll do is if somebody from the House election, Nate Netline or Anthony can send me the emails for the clerk, so I don't have to look them up, that would be good. I'll send them personal invitations and ask them to join us in November. And then Jim's gonna send his list and we'll pick somebody and reach out to them from one of the mainland states. And so I think we're good. Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
This is Cheryl. I'd like to make one announcement that I don't know if you guys know, and it might not be appropriate, and also make the motion to adjourn, but maybe you folks, if you knew Debbie Jackson, I don't know if people know that she passed away almost about 2 weeks ago.
Oh, yeah,
Anyway,
I know her.
anyway, I thought I would just let people know, and I make the motion to, we can adjourn.
Okay, thank you very much, Cheryl. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, well, I think we are adjourned. And
Thanks, and I'm glad I'm not the only one that had trouble with unmuting and muting. Anthony too.
I know, we're gonna need to work on that, I think. But have
Yeah.
a good
All right.
weekend. Bye.
Aloha.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Yeah, bye.
Aloha.